One of the most painful experiences a person can go through is realizing that someone they valued, perhaps even trusted, has disrespected them. And yet, paradoxically, that very act of disrespect can serve as the most profound closure you will ever receive. See, when someone disrespects you, they're revealing something essential. They never truly valued you in the first place. Or perhaps they valued you conditionally, based on what you could offer them, how much they could control you, or whether you conform to their expectations. And that's a deeply unsettling realization, isn't it? But it's also a liberating one, because at that moment, the illusion is shattered, and you see things for what they truly are. When someone disrespects you, they are not just expressing a momentary lapse in judgment or an emotional reaction. They are revealing something far deeper. Disrespect at its core is an unfiltered glimpse into a person's true perception of you. It is a raw, unpolished signal that cuts through the social pleasantries and unspoken expectations. Most of the time, people maintain a degree of politeness. Even in relationships that are deteriorating, they mask their real thoughts behind carefully chosen words, subtle gestures, and half-hearted interactions. But when someone disrespects you, when they belittle you, dismiss you, or treat you with open disregard, that mask slips. You see, perhaps for the first time, how they truly view you, and that moment, as painful as it might be, is invaluable. One of the most common mistakes people make in life is ignoring or rationalizing disrespect. They tell themselves, oh, maybe they didn't mean it that way, or maybe they're just having a bad day. While it's true that people can act out of frustration or stress, consistent or deliberate disrespect is never an accident. It is a revelation. It tells you exactly where you stand in someone's hierarchy of values. This is an uncomfortable truth because it forces you to confront the reality that not everyone who smiles at you, spends time with you, or even claims to care about you actually respects you. And without respect, what do you really have? Relationships, whether personal, professional, or social, are built on a foundation of mutual regard. The moment that foundation cracks, the structure becomes unstable. This is why recognizing disrespect for what it is rather than what you wish it to be is crucial. Many people, when faced with clear disrespect, enter into a dangerous pattern of justification and self-doubt. They wonder if they did something to deserve it. They attempt to fix the situation by seeking further validation from the very person who disrespected them. But here's the hard truth. Respect is not something you should have to earn from someone who already devalues you. If a person only respects you when you meet their conditions, then their respect is transactional, not genuine. And any relationship based on such fragile terms is one that will inevitably lead to disappointment. What makes disrespect so significant is that it is often a turning point. It forces you to make a decision. Either accept the truth and adjust your interactions accordingly, or ignore it and continue investing in a dynamic that does not serve your well-being. Many people choose the latter not because they don't recognize the problem, but because acknowledging it requires courage. It means accepting that some relationships are not as meaningful as they once seemed. It means coming to terms with the fact that someone you admired, trusted, or even loved does not hold you in the same regard. That realization is painful. But what is far worse is pretending it does not exist, allowing yourself to be subjected to continuous disrespect and diminishing your own value in the process. Disrespect should never be seen as just a fleeting moment. It is an insight, it is information, and most importantly, it is an opportunity to reassess your boundaries, to reinforce your self-respect, and to make choices that align with your dignity. Because the moment you truly grasp that disrespect reveals true intentions, you stop wasting time trying to extract loyalty, care, or appreciation from those who are unwilling to give it. Instead, you redirect that energy toward building connections with those who see your value without needing to be convinced of it. Some people will tell you that cutting off those who disrespect you is too harsh, too reactionary. that people make mistakes and should be given second chances. And yes, in some cases that may be true. But the deeper question is this: if someone disrespects you once, is it truly a mistake? Or was it the first time they felt comfortable enough to reveal how they truly see you? If someone disregards your boundaries, diminishes your worth, or treats you as disposable, how many more chances should they get? The reality is, once someone has shown you their true colors, they rarely change them. And if they do, it is not because of your pleading or forgiveness, but because they themselves have undergone a genuine transformation, which is rare. Recognizing disrespect as the unveiling of true intentions does not mean carrying resentment or harboring bitterness. It means understanding that you have been given a gift, a painful but necessary dose of truth. And once you have that truth, it is your responsibility to act on it. Because allowing repeated disrespect does not make you noble or forgiving. It makes you complicit in your own mistreatment. The way you permit others to treat you is a direct reflection of how you value yourself. When you tolerate disrespect, you send a message, not just to the world, but to yourself, that your dignity is negotiable. And the moment you accept that notion, you begin to erode your own sense of self-worth. The strength of a person is not in how well they endure mistreatment, but in how decisively they remove themselves from environments that do not honor them. There is an extraordinary power in standing firm and saying, "I will not engage with those who do not respect me." That does not mean responding with anger, retaliation, or emotional outbursts. It means acknowledging the reality, adjusting your position, and moving forward with clarity. In life, people will show you who they are in many ways, but nothing is as revealing as how they treat you when they no longer need to impress you, when they have nothing to gain from you, or when they believe there are no consequences for their actions. That is when their true character emerges. And when that happens, your responsibility is not to argue, not to prove your worth, but simply to observe, understand, and then decide with absolute certainty that you will never accept less than the respect you deserve. Self-respect is one of the most fundamental elements of a strong, well-lived life, yet it is often sacrificed in the pursuit of external validation. People spend years, even decades, trying to prove their worth to others, seeking approval, admiration, and acknowledgement, without realizing that the very act of chasing validation diminishes their own sense of self. This need for external affirmation is ingrained in human nature. From childhood, we are conditioned to seek approval from parents, teachers, peers, and society as a whole. We are taught that being liked, being accepted, and being praised are markers of success. But what happens when that approval does not come? Or worse, when it is granted only under specific conditions? When you meet the expectations, when you fit the mold, when you comply? What happens when someone withholds respect, treating you as if your value is negotiable, contingent upon their ever-changing standards? This is where self-respect must override the desire for validation. The moment you begin to measure your worth based on how others perceive you, you relinquish control over your own sense of value. If you rely on the respect of others to feel whole, then you will always be at their mercy, adjusting yourself, diminishing yourself, making compromises that slowly chip away at your dignity. The truth is, you should never have to fight for respect from those who genuinely value you. If someone respects you only when you serve their interests, cater to their emotions, or behave in a way that makes them comfortable, then their respect is not real. It is conditional. And conditional respect is nothing more than disguised manipulation. Many people tolerate this form of transactional validation without realizing its consequences. They stay in friendships where they are constantly overlooked or taken for granted. They remain in romantic relationships where love is doled out like a currency, given only when they conform to an unspoken set of rules. They accept work environments where their contributions are minimized unless they play a political game. All of this stems from a fear of losing validation, from the misguided belief that if they walk away, they will be left with nothing. But the reality is, the moment you stop seeking validation from those who do not respect you, you gain something far greater: freedom. freedom from the burden of constantly proving yourself, freedom from the exhausting cycle of bending to the will of people who see you as expendable, freedom from the false belief that your worth is tied to anyone else's approval. This is not to say that respect from others is unimportant. Mutual respect is a necessary ingredient for any meaningful relationship. However, there is a crucial difference between seeking respect and demanding it. The former places your worth in the hands of others, while the latter asserts that your value is non-negotiable. When you prioritize self-respect, you do not beg for acknowledgement. You do not linger where you are not valued. You do not lower yourself in an attempt to raise someone's perception of you. Instead, you operate from a position of internal stability, knowing that respect is not something you should ever have to beg for. It is something that should be given freely, or not at all. But why do so many people struggle to adopt this mindset? Why is it so difficult to walk away from environments where respect is withheld? The answer lies in a deep-rooted psychological need for belonging. Humans are social creatures, hardwired to seek connection and community. The fear of rejection, of being cast out, is one of the most powerful motivators behind human behavior. People convince themselves that enduring disrespect is better than being alone, that tolerating mistreatment is a small price to pay for staying within a certain social circle, a certain relationship, or a certain status. This fear keeps them trapped in situations where they are undervalued simply because the alternative, standing alone, seems unbearable. However, the cost of prioritizing external validation over self-respect is far greater than most people realize. Every time you accept disrespect, you reinforce the idea that it is acceptable. Every time you stay silent in the face of mistreatment, you teach others how to treat you. And over time, this erodes your sense of self-worth. You begin to internalize the message that your value is dependent on others, that you must constantly prove yourself worthy of respect, that your dignity is something to be bargained for rather than upheld. This is a dangerous mindset, because once you start negotiating your self-worth, there is no limit to how much you will compromise. So what is the alternative? The alternative is to stand firm in your own value, regardless of how others perceive you. It means setting clear boundaries and refusing to tolerate disrespect, even if it means losing certain relationships or opportunities. It means understanding that self-respect is not arrogance or stubbornness. It is the recognition that you do not need external validation to affirm your worth. It is the ability to walk away from anyone or anything that requires you to sacrifice your dignity as a condition of acceptance. And most importantly, it is the realization that the people who truly matter, the people who are worthy of your time and energy, will respect you for who you are, not for what you can offer them. When you stop chasing validation and start prioritizing self-respect, something remarkable happens. You begin to attract the right people, the ones who recognize your worth without you having to prove it. You cultivate a sense of inner confidence that is unshaken by external opinions. You develop an unwavering standard for how you allow yourself to be treated, and you enforce it without hesitation. And in doing so, you free yourself from the exhausting cycle of seeking approval, of bending to the expectations of others, of settling for relationships where respect is conditional. At the end of the day, the choice is yours. You can spend your life trying to earn the respect of those who refuse to give it freely, or you can choose to respect yourself first and let everything else fall into place. Because self-respect is not a luxury. It is a necessity. It is the foundation upon which all meaningful relationships are built, and once you make the decision to uphold it, you will never again allow yourself to be in spaces where your worth is up for negotiation. The ability to walk away from disrespect is one of the most powerful forms of self-discipline a person can develop. It is not a sign of weakness, nor is it an admission of defeat. Rather, it is a demonstration of self-respect, a clear indication that you refuse to engage in dynamics that diminish your worth. Many people misunderstand this concept. They believe that walking away means running from conflict, avoiding difficult conversations, or abandoning relationships at the first sign of trouble. But this is not what it means at all. Walking away is not about avoidance, it is about recognition. It is about recognizing when a situation, a relationship, or an environment no longer aligns with your dignity and choosing to remove yourself from it. People often remain in situations where they are undervalued because they believe they must prove something. They think if they try a little harder, explain themselves a little better, or demonstrate their worth more clearly, they will finally be respected. This is a dangerous illusion. Respect is not something you should have to beg for or earn through endless effort. It is either present in a relationship from the beginning or it is not. And if it is not, no amount of self-sacrifice, pleading, or justification will create it. The problem is that many people attach their self-worth to their ability to gain the approval of others. They believe that if someone disrespects them, it is a reflection of their own inadequacy rather than the other person's lack of character. This belief traps them in cycles of over-explaining, over-proving, and over-extending themselves to people who have already decided that they do not value them. But here's the truth. The most powerful response to disrespect is not retaliation, not argument, not an emotional plea. It is indifference. When you refuse to engage, when you remove yourself without seeking validation or closure, you take back control. Many people believe that standing up for themselves means fighting back, proving a point, or making the other person see their mistake. While there is a time and place for setting boundaries and asserting oneself, there is a distinct difference between demanding respect and commanding it. The moment you start demanding respect from someone who refuses to give it, you have already lost. Because respect, once denied, cannot be forced. It must be freely given, or it is meaningless. Walking away is an act of strength because it requires self-control. It requires resisting the urge to explain, to justify, to seek closure from someone who has already shown they do not value you. It requires confidence in your own worth, the ability to say, I do not need this person's approval to validate my existence. And that is one of the hardest things for most people to accept. They want to be understood. They want fairness. They want acknowledgement. But in many cases, those things will never come. And the longer they wait for them, the more power they give away. The inability to walk away from disrespect stems from a fundamental fear of loss. People fear losing relationships, losing status, losing the sense of identity they have built around another person's approval. But what they fail to realize is that staying in an environment where they are not respected is a far greater loss than walking away. Every moment spent in a situation where you are undervalued is a moment stolen from a future in which you could be thriving. Every time you tolerate disrespect, you reinforce the idea that your dignity is negotiable, and over time, this wears away at your confidence, your self-esteem, and your sense of self-worth. Some people will say, but what if I walk away and regret it? What if I misunderstood the situation? To that, the answer is simple. Genuine respect does not disappear the moment you establish a boundary. If someone truly values you, they will not punish you for asserting your worth. If anything, they will respect you more for it. But if your departure is met with silence, indifference, or further disrespect, then you have your answer. Their regard for you was never real in the first place. There is an extraordinary freedom that comes with no longer engaging in battles that do not serve you. Imagine a life where you no longer waste time explaining yourself to people who have no intention of understanding you. A life where you no longer tolerate half-hearted friendships, conditional love, or environments that require you to shrink yourself in order to fit in. A life where you no longer seek closure from people who never truly value you. That life is available to you the moment you decide that walking away is not weakness, it is wisdom. The strength of walking away is not in the act itself, but in the mindset behind it. It is the quiet, unwavering certainty that you do not need to prove yourself to anyone who does not already see your value. It is the refusal to negotiate your dignity. It is the recognition that the right people, those who truly respect and appreciate you, will never put you in a position where you feel the need to prove your worth in the first place. The reality is, the more you elevate yourself, the less tolerance you will have for situations that do not honor you. And this is not arrogance, it is growth. As you become more self-assured, as you develop a deeper sense of self-respect, your patience for disrespect will diminish. You will find that you no longer have the energy to argue with people who misunderstand you on purpose. You will no longer have the desire to seek approval from those who withhold it as a form of control. You will no longer feel the need to explain yourself to people who are committed to misinterpreting you. And in that realization, you will experience a level of peace that can only come from self-assurance. Many people believe that strength is in endurance, the ability to tolerate, to persist, to push through discomfort in the hopes of earning something in the end. But real strength is knowing when to walk away. It is knowing when a battle is not worth fighting, when a relationship is not worth saving, when your time and energy are better spent elsewhere. And the moment you master this, you become untouchable, because the person who does not need external validation to affirm their worth is the person who is truly free. When someone disrespects you, it is easy to take it personally. It feels like an attack on your character, your worth, or your significance. But in most cases, disrespect is not actually about you. It is a reflection of the person delivering it. It reveals more about their values, their mindset, and their emotional limitations than it does about your own worth. This is a difficult truth to internalize, because people often believe that if they were just a little better, a little stronger, a little more likable, they could change the way they are treated. But this is an illusion. Disrespect originates from within the person giving it, not the person receiving it. And once you understand this, you stop personalizing it. People who belittle others, who dismiss them, who treat them with arrogance or cruelty, are often dealing with their own unresolved issues. Sometimes it is insecurity, an attempt to elevate themselves by diminishing others. Sometimes it is a lack of emotional maturity, the inability to communicate effectively, so they resort to condescension or aggression. Sometimes it is entitlement, a deep-seated belief that their needs, opinions, and time are more important than anyone else's. Whatever the reason, their behavior is a reflection of their inner world, not a judgment of your value. Yet too often, people internalize disrespect. They question themselves. Did I do something wrong? Am I not good enough? Should I have acted differently? They replay interactions in their minds, searching for a way they could have altered the outcome. But this kind of self-doubt is not only unnecessary, it is counterproductive. It places responsibility for another person's actions on your shoulders, when in reality, their behavior is a direct consequence of their own mindset and beliefs. A powerful shift occurs when you stop seeking answers to disrespect within yourself and start recognizing it for what it is, a statement about the person who delivered it. The moment you understand this, you reclaim your power. You realize that you do not have to react emotionally. You do not have to internalize someone else's dysfunction. And most importantly, you do not have to prove anything to them. You can simply observe, understand, and detach. One of the most effective ways to gauge a person's character is by paying attention to how they treat others when they have nothing to gain. People often disguise their true nature when they are trying to impress someone or when they see an opportunity for personal benefit. But when they believe there are no consequences, when they think you have no power over them, or when they feel they can act without repercussions, that is when their real character surfaces. Disrespect is often an unintentional confession. It reveals who a person truly is when they are no longer concerned with maintaining an image, and that is something you should never ignore. Some people will test your boundaries to see how much they can get away with. They will push subtly at first just to gauge your reaction. If you tolerate the first small instance of disrespect, they escalate. If you make excuses for them, they take it as permission. And before you know it, a pattern is formed, not because they are consciously plotting against you, but because human nature is such that people often respect only the limits that are enforced. This is why it is crucial to recognize early signs of disrespect and address them immediately, not by arguing, not by seeking validation, but by making it clear that you will not participate in that dynamic. Detachment is a skill that must be developed. It means refusing to absorb the negativity of others. It means not allowing someone else's emotional instability to dictate your own self-perception. It means understanding that not every insult requires a response. Not every slight requires confrontation, and not every person deserves access to your energy. Many people struggle with this concept because they believe that ignoring disrespect is the same as accepting it. But detachment is not passivity, it is control. It is choosing where to invest your attention and where to withdraw it. It is recognizing that your energy is a finite resource, and wasting it on someone who does not respect you is one of the most self-destructive things you can do. Think about it. Every time you engage with someone who disrespects you, you are giving them your attention, your time, your emotional energy. And for what? To prove a point? To win an argument? To get an apology that likely won't be sincere? More often than not, your efforts will be wasted, because a person who lacks the self-awareness to respect you in the first place is unlikely to suddenly gain it through a confrontation. Instead, the most effective response is often to disengage completely, to recognize that you are not obligated to convince anyone of your worth, and you certainly do not need to plead for basic respect. Some people will try to provoke a reaction from you because they thrive on the power it gives them. They will say something disrespectful just to see how you respond. They will push your buttons just to watch you react. They will use subtle manipulation tactics, passive aggression, or outright hostility to draw you into their dysfunction. But the moment you react, you give them exactly what they want, proof that they have control over your emotions. This is why detachment is so powerful. When you refuse to engage, when you remain unbothered, when you do not give them the satisfaction of a reaction, you take away their power entirely. At the core of all of this is a simple but profound truth. The way people treat you is a reflection of them, not you. And once you truly understand this, you are free from self-doubt, free from the need for validation, free from the exhausting cycle of seeking explanations or fairness from those who are incapable of giving them. Instead of focusing on the actions of others, shift your attention inward. Ask yourself, why do I feel the need to prove myself to someone who does not respect me? Why do I waste energy on people who have already shown me who they are? These questions are far more important than anything someone else says or does, because at the end of the day, the only thing that truly matters is how you see yourself. When you stop taking disrespect personally, you step into a position of immense strength. You no longer feel the need to defend yourself against every slight. You no longer waste time explaining yourself to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer allow other people's opinions or treatment of you to dictate your self-worth. Instead, you become untouchable. You recognize that the only validation you need comes from within. And when you carry yourself with that level of confidence and clarity, the people who once disrespected you will either fall away or be forced to adjust how they engage with you. In the end, detachment is not about indifference, it is about discernment. It is about choosing where to invest your energy, where to set your boundaries, and most importantly, where to walk away. It is about recognizing that disrespect says far more about the person delivering it than it does about you. And once you understand that, you will never again allow someone else's opinion of you to define your own worth. Closure is something many people chase, believing it will bring them peace. They want an apology, an explanation, or some kind of acknowledgement from the person who hurt them. They believe that if they can just get this final piece of clarity, they will be able to move on. But the harsh reality is that in many cases, closure never comes. not in the way they expect it. Some people will never admit they were wrong. Some will never give you the respect you deserve. Some will never acknowledge the pain they caused. And if you spend your life waiting for that, you give away your power. Closure is not something that comes from another person. It is something you give to yourself. It is a decision, an internal process of acceptance rather than an external event. When you finally realize this, you stop searching for explanations from people who are incapable of providing them. You stop needing an apology to validate your pain. You stop waiting for someone else to acknowledge your worth. Instead, you take control of your own healing, and the most powerful form of closure, the one that truly sets you free, is recognizing that disrespect itself was the closure. When someone disrespects you, they are telling you everything you need to know about how they view you and the role you play in their life. They are showing you through their actions that they do not value you the way you deserve to be valued. And that is the only answer you need. You do not need to ask them why. You do not need to try to make them see what they did wrong. You do not need to wait for them to change or grow or realize their mistake. The moment they chose to disrespect you, they gave you your closure. And once you accept that, you can walk away without looking back. People waste years of their lives stuck in cycles of seeking validation from those who will never provide it. They revisit conversations hoping for a different outcome. They hold on to relationships that are fundamentally broken because they believe that if they just wait a little longer, the other person will finally understand. But understanding is not something you can force. If someone disrespected you and did not feel remorse, that is not something you can fix. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can reclaim your time, your energy, and your sense of self-worth. The reason people struggle with this is that they believe walking away without closure makes them weak. They think it means they lost, that they let the other person get away with something. But this is a flawed way of thinking. Closure is not about winning or losing. It is not about getting the last word. It is about knowing when a situation no longer serves you and having the strength to let it go without needing anything in return. It is about prioritizing your peace over your need to be understood. There is nothing more powerful than a person who does not require external validation to move on. When you reach the point where you no longer need an apology, where you do not need someone else to acknowledge your worth, where you can walk away from disrespect without feeling the urge to prove yourself, that is true freedom. It means you have taken back control. It means you have decided that your self-worth is not up for negotiation. It means you have chosen yourself over the illusion of closure. Some people will try to manipulate you into staying engaged by withholding closure on purpose. They will avoid difficult conversations, give you mixed signals, or refuse to acknowledge their wrongdoing because they know it keeps you hooked. They understand that as long as you are waiting for an answer, an apology, or an explanation, you are still emotionally invested. And as long as you are emotionally invested, they still have power over you. But the moment you decide that you do not need closure from them, that you have already received all the information you need through their actions, you take that power away. One of the most difficult but liberating lessons in life is learning to accept things as they are rather than how you wish they would be. Some people will never give you the respect you deserve. Some relationships will never end with a neatly wrapped conclusion. Some situations will never make sense, and that is okay. Because closure is not something that exists out in the world waiting for you to find it. It is something you create within yourself. The key to true closure is understanding that you do not need someone else to validate your pain for it to be real. You do not need someone else to admit they were wrong for you to heal. You do not need to hear the words, "I'm sorry," to let go. The only thing you need is the recognition that you deserve better and the willingness to act on that recognition. When you stop chasing closure, you step into a position of immense strength. You stop trying to rewrite the past. You stop waiting for people to change. You stop giving your energy to situations that have already shown you they are not meant for you. Instead, you focus on what is within your control, your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own future. And that is where true peace comes from. Many people make the mistake of believing that closure is a door someone else has to close for them. They think that in order to move on, they need a final conversation, a clear explanation, or a formal ending. But this is not true. Closure is not a door someone else closes. It is a door you walk through yourself. It is a decision to no longer participate in a situation that brings you pain. It is a choice to remove yourself from environments where you are not respected. It is the realization that the only validation you need is your own. The most powerful thing you can do for yourself is to stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to move on. You do not need their words. Their silence was enough. You do not need their apology. Their action spoke for them. You do not need to keep searching for answers. The way they treated you was the answer. And once you accept that, you are free. Freedom comes from understanding that you hold the power to decide when something is over. You do not have to wait for someone else to acknowledge the damage they caused. You do not have to wait for an apology that may never come. You do not have to keep reliving the past, hoping for a different outcome. You can decide right now, in this moment, that their disrespect was all the closure you needed. And the second you make that decision, you reclaim your power, your peace, and your future. The greatest power you can claim in life is the ability to walk away from what no longer serves you without bitterness, without resentment, and without the need for external validation. Disrespect was the closure. It was the unspoken truth, the undeniable proof, the final lesson that told you everything you needed to know. It was never about changing them, convincing them, or waiting for their acknowledgement. It was always about recognizing your own worth and refusing to let anyone else define it for you. Closure is not a conversation. It is not an apology. It is not an explanation that makes everything make sense. Closure is a decision, a choice to stop seeking answers from those who will never provide them and to start building a future free from their influence. It is the realization that your peace matters more than their recognition of your pain. When you stop chasing closure from others, you step into a space of immense strength. You no longer allow disrespect to shake your sense of self. You no longer need permission to move forward. You no longer waste your energy trying to rewrite the past. Instead, you focus on what is within your control, your own actions, your own growth, your own future. The way someone treated you was the answer. Their actions spoke louder than any apology ever could. Their lack of respect was the only closure you needed. And once you accept that, you are free to live, to grow, and to step into the future without carrying the weight of the past. So let go, walk away, and never again question your worth in the presence of those who could not see it.